Good morning, everyone. My name is Ekaterina Thompson, and today we're going to be talking about the sensitivity analysis. So, we're going to be quickly going over capital budgeting and how the sensitivity analysis fits into that. We're going to talk about what the sensitivity analysis is and why we should use it, how to identify variables, and then use that to create a big picture and ultimately figure out how to make safe or take safe risks with our budget. So, as I said, today we're going to be talking about the sensitivity analysis, and this is a useful capital budgeting tool. But first, what's capital budgeting? So, businesses need to plan and strategize before committing to a large investment, like the purchase of expensive equipment, funding a new project, or establishing more locations at which they can operate. So, capital budgeting has many tools that can help analyze the investment's financial viability, but as I said, we're going to be focusing on just the sensitivity analysis today. So, sensitivity analysis is also known as a what if analysis, and it allows businesses to determine the financial outcome of an investment based on variables which can be changed as necessary. So, let's say I own a doggy daycare business. I decide I want to incorporate a pickup or drop off service to better serve my existing clientele and expand my customer base. And I know that this is going to cost me $70,000 to purchase and modify a vehicle in order to provide this service. But what if my sales drop by 5%? What if the cost of gas jumps up and then that increases the cost of a tank of gas by $10? So essentially, I need to know how sensitive the investment is to changes in any assumptions I use to plan for this project, like basic operating costs and customer demand. So when we talk about capital investments, we're talking about long-term investments that have an inherent level of uncertainty. So identifying risks and projecting profit over the next quarter or year is manageable. But planning for those long term, it becomes difficult because a business can be impacted by many things, many of which can be planned for and many of which cannot. So inflation rates could change, technology could become obsolete, laws can change the way that business operates, and that's just to name a few. So we need to identify the variables that we want to test in this what if scenario. This what if analysis. So the first and foremost that we need to ask ourselves is, what is our purpose? Like, what are we trying to find out by running this analysis? So Carlberg 2018 says that some of the most common assumptions in capital budgeting models are interest rates, operating costs, and inflation. Take inflation, for example. We can input a realistic but hypothetical change of 2% for inflation. And that realistic part is key. Irons 2019 stresses that these inputs have to be a realistic representation of uncertainty. Carlberg 2018 did a great job explaining how to model this in Excel. And once we have those important inputs chosen, like let's say unit costs, changes can be input to show that maybe it'll go up or down 7%. From there, the new NPV or IRR can be calculated, and that lets us see the range of possible results or impacts instead of just the expected outcome. So, capital budgeting tools are very useful, but they are not all encompassing. For example, maybe the project or investment is achievable financially only if the business cuts corners elsewhere. If the only way to make the project a success is to switch to a supplier whose values don't align with our business's values, like let's say maybe their sources are questionable or maybe even illegal, then the business is going to take on a huge risk when it comes to maintaining support from its customer base. Irons 2019 stresses that customer response has a major influence on whether or not the investment would be a logical choice. So there are a few methods that can be used to factor in the risk of our budget, and these all fall under the what if, the sensitivity analysis. So this scenario analysis presents the best base or middle ground, so to speak, and then the worst case scenarios. So it allows the business to go to plan for problems instead of attempting to solve problems once they arise. So problem planning instead of problem solving. Carlberg 2018 explains that this method is not only easy to understand, but it's also simple to generate in Excel. Huge win for everybody. So the next one is the risk-adjusted discount rate. This uses the same logic as determining interest rates for risky loans. The higher the risk, the higher the rate. IRS 2019 says that by doing this, we can make sure our expectations for the investment's return profit are realistic. And then the last one we're going to talk about is the Monte Carlo simulation. And this one provides like the business owner, the board, whoever the decision makers are, with a wide range of potential outcomes. This one's great because it uses statistics to gauge the uncertainty of an investment. Carlberg 2018 says that this comes in handy for investments that are particularly complex or uncertain. So using these tools to analyze risk from a different perspective allows us to figure out if the project or investment is feasible by using data other than just numbers. So the main thing to take away from the sensitivity analysis is that this is an amazing capital budgeting tool that lets us play out all of those scenarios that keep us up at night, like what if this, what if that, and input it into a model that we can actually analyze, like using realistic data to let us know if this should actually be keeping us up at night or if it's a realistic thing that we can plan for and account for within our budget. So thank you all for attending the training today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.